My first coffee shop was back in 1997 in Belfast. I just returned from Canada and went back to working in bars and restaurants, how I kind of paid my way through college. I just loved the service industry. At the time there was no coffee industry, no coffee shops. That culture hadn't reached Ireland, whether from North America or from Italy or France or Spain. I found a little shop quite close to Queen's University in Belfast and I had no experience really in terms of running a business, but again I built it on a bit of a shoestring budget, put my heart and soul into it, opened the doors, and it was like a rocket that I had to hang on to. It was so busy, and it was just down to sheer luck and timing and serendipity or whatever you call it, but I can't take any credit for business acumen or insight. I'd grown up in Canada obviously with the coffee industry around me, so it wasn't anything that was particularly new to me, but obviously in terms of late 90s in Belfast it was something pretty special, so it was an unqualified success. And I don't say that to be boastful. I can only take credit for opening the doors because it just happened all by itself. I sold it a couple of years later and moved to Dublin in 2000. Part of the problem with maybe being young and tasting success, and it's easy to say now, but you look back and you kind of think, I've got it all figured out and I'm a smart guy and I know what's going on. I've got my finger on the pulse. So I opened up a place called Bond, which was in the end a restaurant in Dublin. It was never meant to be a restaurant, but that's a different story. It turned into one. It was very well received and it was novel at the time, and we had lots of lovely awards and reviews and it was great, except it lost so much money. It was just a disaster. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands just vanished down a big black hole that just didn't seem to have a bottom. That pretty much wiped me out financially and psychologically, mentally. About a year and a half later, I managed to cobble together, with the help of a relative, a few quid, and I bought a little three-wheeler from Germany. Little three-wheeler Piaggio with a coffee machine fitted to the back. And again, there was no grand plan, but I kind of went back to what I knew in terms of coffee and what had kind of brought me the success, and I didn't want to overcomplicate things. So I brought this little three-wheel van back to Ireland and convinced the Department of Marine to let me stand at the end of Howth Pier. And they thought I was crazy and that no one's ever asked to stand at the end of the pier and serve coffee. And I had this little theory that wherever you find prams, you'll find exhausted parents, and wherever there's exhausted parents, there's a market for coffee. So again, maybe luck, maybe timing, maybe an idea. On St. Patrick's Day 2004, I served my first coffee standing at the end of Howth Pier, and it was a beautiful day like today, and the queue formed and it just didn't seem to go away. The Celtic Tiger was roaring, and I was quite happy starting again. It was just me. It was a very simple concepts, products, a few pastries. And pretty much from day one, all the damage from the failed restaurant kind of vanished, and I just decided that this was what I had to focus on, and I spent the next 8 years with this little van in Howth. I then ended up in Dunleary, spent a year or two there, and then ended up in the IFSC. It was a profitable business, and I won an Irish Barista Championships at the time, represented Ireland, all from the back of this little van, and I just kept it simple. And after the failure of the restaurant, I just decided that I was never going to move into a premises that didn't suit my business model. I wanted to find somewhere that just worked for what it was that I wanted to do. And the Celtic Tiger, with rents as they were, I didn't want to have to start doing paninis or smoothies or salads just to pay the rent. I wanted coffee and a few pastries and keep it simple. So the recession hit, and all of a sudden landlords were much more receptive to my phone calls, and that's kind of how Pembroke Street happened, and South Anne Street subsequently. After that we opened South Leinster Street. That was a little over a year ago, and we're obviously in the process now of building our flagship store on Trinity Street, which is kind of a very badly kept secret. Again, it's all about just keeping it simple for me and making a cup of coffee.